Hello, EDU360. Welcome to Behavior in Classroom Management. So, a little bit about me. My name is Bailey Payne. I am going to be your instructor this semester, so no need for the formalities. Just have a master's degree. I'm a behavior analyst that serves the Bowling Green, Kentucky community at large. So no professor, just you can just call me Bailey. We can keep it super informal, but this is my contact information. I work at WKU very part-time. So I am full-time in schools. I serve 2 school districts, do some private ABA therapy, work with a lot of different individuals across 18 months to well into adulthood, and just have a very, very busy schedule. So I've included my personal cell for you. Reach out to me via email, give me 24 hours. But if something really pressing occurs, just shoot me a text message. And then follow me along on social media for all things behavior in schools, increasing job satisfaction for teachers, because there's just a lot of challenging behaviors right now in schools. I do a lot of in-services for a lot of different school districts, and the number one requested in-service topic across the board is how to handle student behaviors. So this is it. I know this is early in your education career. Maybe some of you have many more semesters before student teaching. Maybe some of you don't have that many, but to me, this is the foundational course that you need to be fully prepared to be a successful teacher in today's age, because all teachers are reporting that the number one thing they struggle with is problem behaviors in the classroom. And so the entire semester of this course will be unfolding to prepare you for that, to teach you exactly how to evaluate behavior, to understand why behaviors are happening in the classroom so that you can change it. Because students that walk through the door in your classroom, they're not going anywhere. And there's nobody that's really going to come fix the problems for you. Sure, there's support teams in schools. You might have a great school counselor that's really supportive. You might have a really knowledgeable school psych. You might have a really supportive principal. But at the end of the day, they haven't had much more training than you. And a lot of them haven't had access to this training that you're going to get this semester. So I really hope that this gives you an edge. All right. So at this point, usually we go around the classroom, and I really like to get to know my students. So this is not required, but I would love to get to know who is behind the computer screen this semester. And I know I'm not going to get to interact a lot directly with you, but this is not required, reminder. But if you would shoot me an email, just a little introduction about yourself, you could include some of these things just so that when I'm grading, when I'm giving feedback, I just have an idea of you, who you are, what age, what your career goals are, so that I can hopefully tailor this class and tailor my feedback to really meet your needs. So I would love to hear from you. Again, it's not required, but I would very much love to hear from you. All right, so let's dive into Blackboard and how this course is structured. So each week you will have a folder of content. It will have PowerPoints, it will have lectures, and then it will have a little bit of a to-do list for you, because this is the first semester. Woo! You guys are getting the sneak peek. So I will probably be tossing some surveys at you to give me some feedback on how you're feeling about utilizing this text in this course, because this is the first time I've done that. But you will have some assigned reading also. So we've got each week, expect. You need to double check for the PowerPoints. You need to double check for lecture or lectures, depending on if I start rattling and I need to break it up into 2 lectures, double check for lecture. Then you need to double check for assigned reading. There is assigned reading almost every single week, this class. So make sure to double check that you're staying up to par with this. There will be information specifically pulled from this text on assignments in the midterm. I hope to make this text very application based. This is not philosophy. This is examples. This is chunky reading. My goal, I hope I would never make students buy text that you're required to use this semester and then you never pick it up ever again. There is nothing more annoying than that to me. So my goal is that this is going to be a book that you read now when you're like, pretty interesting. I think I'm going to hang on to this. I think it's going to benefit me my first year in the classroom, or maybe even my 10th year in the classroom. That is what this book is designed for. I hope that you will want to hold on to this textbook. I hope there are some application parts at the end of each chapter where You can like be writing in this text. I want this text to be your text. I want you to interact with this text. I want to bring this text to life in lectures and in assignments. And I don't know more than anything, I just hope it benefits you. But so make sure you can get this through. I think we double checked. It should be a part of the Big Red backpack program if you participate. If not, reach out to your bookstore. This textbook, Behavior Breakthrough, is associated with all EDU3 sections that I'm teaching. So reach out, make sure that you get this text. This is going to be a large portion of our course. So make sure that you've got this text. Okay, so weekly, we've got PowerPoints, and that's just for you to view along. You can see them in my lectures, but sometimes it helps to kind of be able to go back and flip through a PowerPoint. Lectures via Zoom links, and then assigned readings, and then also double check assignments. I have an overall course schedule posted on the announcement section, which will describe when assignments are due. It will describe if I'm changing due dates. I am not necessarily going to change all due dates throughout every section of Blackboard. If you have a question, when a reading is due, when an assignment is due, if I decide that I need to change things throughout the semester because scheduling mishaps, whatever has occurred, I feel like I'm going over too much, I feel like we need to speed up, whatever the case may be, your number one place to go check for information regarding assignments, readings, class meetings, information is the overall course schedule, is what the announcement is labeled at in the announcement section on Blackboard. That's where you will get all of the information. And then you've got a weekly content folder to pull from. Assignments are not posted under the content folders. There is a separate assignments section that as an assignment is due, which I believe the very first assignment due in this class will be your autobiography assignment. You will be able to pull each assignment due in the assignments section, which is a separate folder on Blackboard. Reach out to me if you have any Blackboard related questions. All assignments also submitted to Blackboard. Obviously, this entire course is operated through Blackboard, and everything will just be due like that day at 11:59 p.m. All right, so let's go over some student expectations. Your expectation is to review the material that's provided to you. I have not assigned busy work. there is not a ton of assignments in this class, and I hope to keep my lectures very brief for you. This is not a very busy work course. However, the information that is provided to you is highly relevant and 100% will return in an assignment or in the midterm. I am not tossing a ton of extra information to you that you don't need to know directly related to assignments in this course. So if I provide you information, if I say things multiple times, content related, I can promise you it will come back to you in an assignment or midterm. If I repeat it multiple times, that means that it's highly relevant. Read the readings. The readings are going to be directly related to assignments and information on the midterm as well. I do not expect you to read something from the text, and if I've never mentioned it in a lecture, you can promise this. If I have not mentioned it in a lecture, it's not just going to show up on the midterm because I assigned it as a reading. Everything should be very closely correlated with this assignment. You will read it, and then we will discuss it. We will dive into it deeper in application. It will all be woven together. So there's not going to be like hidden material within this text that you're going to be assessed on. This is a guide for comprehension. The lectures is a guide for comprehension, and they should work together. Make sure you view those lectures. The content in classroom management in this course, EDU360, you cannot Google correct answers. And I'm not just saying this, I promise you I will know if you're going to Google. If you're going to Google or talk to a friend, make sure that you talk to somebody that has taken this class before, specifically from me, if you're going to cheat the system, or make sure that you get the information from a behavior analyst, ABA. If you're going to cheat, let me at least guide you to cheat and get the information from the correct location. This information is very different than information that you are going to receive from a certified teacher. This information that I provide you is very specific to information provided by Bailey Payne. It is a very individualized course. I have tailored this course with the information that I know as a behavior analyst and the experiences that I have working in schools. This is an individualized, tailored course to help you as a future educator. And I hope that this is one of the more helpful courses that you get to take as well. Reach out to me. I know that we don't participate in live instruction, but reach out to me, email me, post messages on Blackboard. I am less frequent about checking those. Emailing me is the surefire way to get the quickest response, but actively engage with me. We're going to have weekly reviews in this course where they're worth 0 points. It's just a participation moment. Can't even say grade. They're worth 0 points, right? But it's all about interacting with me to make sure that you're comprehending the material. And of course, do your own work. All right, so there are some field experience hours related to this course, unless you're taking this in the summer. If you are taking this class in the fall or spring, there are field experience hours associated with this course. So in order to be assigned a placement, you need to make sure, number one, that you need to take the orientation session. Here is the information provided. You need to get into contact with the OPES Office of Professional Education, Office of Professional Education Services, I think. Is it posted on here? I'm 99% sure. But you need to make sure that you have taken an orientation course. That is required. If you have not completed orientation, here's your information. You need to get on that now, because there are multiple other things after orientation that you need to do to be able to be provided a placement for your field hours associated with this class, but orientation is first. Okay, so things to make sure you understand. We will continue to repeat this. However, I need you to start understanding what's required of this course. There is field work required for this course. That means you are going to be out in schools, working with children, gaining real world experience. That is a requirement as a part of this course, right? To be an educator, to be able to student teach, you have to achieve 200 field experience hours. So with this class, you are going to be getting field experience hours that is calculated in your education schedule, that the hours associated with this class are required so that you get your 200 and can actually student teach when it's time for you to do so. You must complete orientation. A part of orientation, which you will get all of this information in orientation, is completing a medical, physical / TB test. You have to have a background check on file, and you must have that child abuse and neglect CAN check on file. Here's some links to provide the information, as well as sign up, I guess, if you need information regarding the orientation. Know that those things are required. Know that there are 15 hours of field work associated with EDU360. 15. Okay, that doesn't mean that you're going to be in the classroom in the assigned location provided by OPES for the full 15 hours. Okay, so listen closely. 10 hours are indirect. There is an assignment in the assignment section directly related to information specific to your field experience hours. But just to give you a heads up, 10 hours are what we call more indirect hours. So if you are a coach, if you're working at an after-school program, if you are mentoring or tutoring students, if you are nannying, if you're teaching dance lessons, if you're teaching private music lessons, if you are working with children in any capacity, behavior is going to be involved. That's going to be relevant for these 10 indirect hours. Of course, every semester we have some students that have some barriers and are like, I'm super busy this semester, I'm working, my job is not related to education. There are some possible videos for you to view for those 10 indirect hours. All right, then 5 hours must be completed in the placement assigned to you by the OPES office. So a part of this course, you're going to complete an application to receive a placement in Warren or surrounding counties in a district, or you can complete an out of placement area where you get to go to your aunt's school back home, or you're going to go to your home school back home at spring break, and you're going to observe 5 hours directly in the environment that is approved through OPES office, right? All 15 hours, every single one of them has to be completed by the end of the semester for you to pass this class. There is no way around it. These 15 hours is a part of the requirements to pass this class. All right, so there is the link for your out of area placements. If you have a connection to a family member that teaches, if you have a connection to your school district back home, whatever it is, this is your out of area placement link. And then there is a Google video, doc, I don't know. There's a big folder here all about how to document these 15 hours. These 15 hours have to be documented in the, what is it, cases system in order to show that you have met criteria appropriately if you get audited before you student teach, that you've accurately accumulated those 200 hours. So this semester, you're going to be individually responsible for entering and documenting your 15 total hours once you have them completed. There's a sign form. I can sign off on the instructor for you. Your supervisor can sign off if it's the 10 flexible hours in the job place, the placement that you are assigned, your teacher can sign off, whoever can sign off on them, but you're going to have to upload these documents and accurately reflect the 15 hours that you get this semester in the cases system to show that you've met criteria for the 200 hours to student teach. All right, another option for getting your 15 total hours is substitute teaching. So here's some information if you're interested in applying to be a substitute teacher. For those of you that have already maybe done some substitute teaching, you know there is no better prep for a future educator than to go ahead and get some experience substitute teaching. Really, really good hands-on experience substitute teaching. So there is that information. And then let's dive in. Let's dive into PBIS. So the framework of this course is all things positive interventions and supports, PBIS. I hope that you've heard of that by now. When it comes time for you to apply for your first job and you reference in that interview, yes, I've had exposure to PBIS. I've had a lot of training in positive behavior interventions and supports. I'm aware of the framework to promote desired behavior in schools because I've had training in PBIS. Administrators' ears perk up. This is a really big deal in today's schools to be identified as a PBIS school, to be identified as utilizing PBIS strategies. So here's the framework. Here's what it tells us. This green section on the triangle represents 80% of students. And so what that means is if you utilize prevention strategies appropriately to mastery, 80% of students in your classroom are going to respond behaviorally, are going to behaviorally be appropriate. Prevention strategies are going to be enough for 80% of your students, and you will be able to have instructional control of 80% of your students. They don't need more from you as a teacher other than the use of prevention strategies. Okay, so those of you that have spent some time in the classroom and maybe you are seasoned working in a school district, I would say this is an overinflated number. Data hasn't been updated from PBIS. For documentation test purposes, you need to know 80%. However, for real life purposes, depending on the district, depending on the culture, depending on the socioeconomic class, depending on the barriers of parents and students in your classroom, I would say it's more like 50%. But there's a lot of behavioral issues that students come with today, right? I say that we are educating the iPad generation, the iPhone generation. When students leave your classroom, they go home and spend an extensive amount of time on technology. So what does that do to students? Well, when a student is plugged into technology, what are they doing? They're usually engaging in something that's very highly valuable to them. It is extremely neurologically stimulating. What we view, Reels, TikTok, social media, right? It's rapid. We don't watch 15-minute videos on social media or Cocomelon, right? For younger children, Blippi, they're not, like the pictures change fast. It's rapid, it's repetitive, it's short, brief. It is very highly neurologically stimulating. The iPad generation, they go home and they spend extensive amount of time on technology. When they're plugged into technology, are they functionally communicating with people in the real world? No. Are they practicing problem solving in the real world? No. Are they practicing social skills with other people, with other peers in the real world? No. Are they gaining executive functioning skills that's necessary to be independent and successful in a general education classroom? No. So then when kids come to school, after spending so much time on technology, the structure and the demands of school is like, boom, I don't have the tolerance for this. Like, what are you talking? Like, children are just behaviorally not prepared to be successful in schools now. And I really think it's technology, right? Then that yellow section we call this the PBIS triangle. That yellow section represents 15% of students. This is my at-risk section. That tells me that 15% of students in my classroom are at risk for displaying problematic behaviors, challenging behaviors, disruptive behaviors. This tells me that this 15% is going to require some interventions to respond to the challenging behaviors that they present. And then the red section, that tiny part at the top of the triangle, 5%. This is my high risk population. These are students that display challenging behaviors. They probably have a functional behavior assessment on file. They probably have a behavior plan. They probably have a school psych. They probably have a school counselor already involved that's going to guide you in helping to educate these students. Maybe they have an IEP and a special education teacher is in your classroom part of the time to support these students. This is the PBIS triangle. It is providing you the framework to understand all students need prevention strategies. Some students need more than prevention strategies and require some interventions. And then a little bit of the population requires intensive interventions because of their displays of high-risk behaviors. All right, so definitions that you need to know this semester. Here it is. Positive behavior interventions and supports is the exact same thing as MTSS or RTA. I just want you to be familiar with acronyms. These are acronyms that are tossed around in general education classrooms and within school districts often. You want to be able to say, I'm familiar with MTSS. I want you to be able to say you're familiar with RTI, response to intervention, multi-tiered systems of support. These are all frameworks for supporting students' academic and behavioral needs. So all you need to know is the acronyms, know what they stand for, and then understand that they're identical. They're synonymous. They mean the same thing. Positive behavior interventions and supports means the same thing as multi-tiered systems of supports, means the same thing as RTI. They're all basically a tiered system, that pyramid model, providing us a framework for supporting students based on their behavioral need. Know that there's 3 parts. It's that multi-tiered system, right? Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Tier 1, that's that green section, prevention. Tier 2, that's the yellow section, at risk. Tier 3, that's the 5% red section, high risk, multi-tiered system. Okay, I want you guys to pause my lecture, watch this video, and come back to the lecture. So hit pause in a new window, open this link, watch the video, and then we're going to come back and discuss it. All right, so I hope you got out of this that the teacher has the power. The teacher has the power to promote desired behaviors. Newsflash, I go into a lot of school districts and I work with students that have problematic behavior. I work closely with special ed directors and I go in for that top 5% of students that are displaying high risk, disruptive, problematic behaviors. But here's the top secret that nobody understands. When I go in to address a student's problem behaviors, guess what I'm really addressing? The environment. I'm giving the teacher strategies to behave differently, which then in turn changes the student's behavior. I'm not fixing the student, I'm fixing the environment. So that's what I want you to get out of this video. Why change behavior? Why do you as a future educator, why do you as a teacher need to know why and how do I need to change behavior? Why is this important to me? Why should I value this class? Because it's the #1 concern reported by teachers. It's the #1 thing that steals joy from teachers being able to teach. It leads to burnout. Behaviors day in and day out, when you do not have control of your class and you cannot teach the subject that you're passionate about and you cannot enjoy children, the sole reason we're there and the sole thing that we're passionate about, when you can't enjoy it, people leave the field of education, and we need quality teachers more so now than ever. But if you're going to be a quality teacher, you have to know how to address behavior. And in order to know how to address behavior, you have to know how to change it. We need to know how to decrease problems to increase learning. If you don't know why behavior is happening, you will not know how to decrease the problems. That's the purpose of this class. I want to give you tools to make you an educator for as long as you want to be one, happily. That's what I hope to give you this class. And when you know how to change behavior, that gives you the power to change the trajectory of a student's life. You know, those students that come with a reputation year after year after year, problem behavior year after year after year. That's because they never encountered a teacher that understood their behavior and was able to change the environment to promote pro-social or good behavior in their classroom. How unfair. And what happens to students that have a reputation, have low self-esteem, aren't learning as much as other students, have barriers more so than other students. They have mental health issues. They're socially isolated. They experience bullying. They have low self-esteem. They become low performers. And what types of jobs do they get after graduation if they graduate? Where do they go? What systems do they become a part of? So if you could change a student's behavior, that could change the entire trajectory of that student's life. And then I want you to be able to see the student as struggling, not as a problem. I want you to see students as an opportunity for you to pour in and help that student change their life so that they can start learning. Other people can see the good that they offer this world and that they're not just viewed as a problem. I don't know, call me crazy. And I'm clearly passionate about this because it's my entire career, but this is huge, y'all. These are very, very huge things. So I want you to think about this. Jot down some notes, hit pause. How do you know if you have problem behaviors in your class? What constitutes a problem? Because all of us are a problem from time to time. Everybody's disruptive from time to time. So at what point does behavior become a problem? Usually I would have students talk about this together in my live classes. So I want you to pause this, think about it, jot down some notes, and then continue. So let's talk about it. What determines a behavior as being worthy of being targeted for change? How do I know if I've actually got a problem? Is the student repeatedly disruptive? Everybody's disruptive from time to time. I'm talking a pattern, repeatedly disruptive. Is the student, are consistent redirections and corrections being given? If you find yourself repeatedly having to redirect or correct a certain student, that's a problem. Because then you're teaching that student that your problematic behavior reliably gets me to correct you and gives you my attention more so than good behavior. That's a toxic cycle. That's a problem. Does the student cause a safety risk to themselves or other students? If learning isn't occurring, I dare say the student that is quiet, sits in the back, is never outwardly disruptive, but you can tell through assignments that they turn in that they're not comprehending the material and they're not learning it. That's a problem. We need to help that student. They are worthy of us changing their behavior. If social isolation or bullying is occurring, that's a problem. We're always going to address that. We're going to be in tune to that, and we are going to help those students because we know what can happen and the detriments of that unfolding. And I will not let that happen in my presence or in my classroom. I will take responsibility to change that behavior. If you feel yourself being frustrated by a student's behavior, that's a problem. That's worthy of us targeting the behavior for change. If the student identifies that they need help, that's a problem. I'm going to help a student every single time if they ask for help. These are things to consider. When these things happen in your classroom, I know I need to utilize the strategies provided to me in EDU360 to help a student because these things are legitimate problems. All right, so let's dive into some key terms. Undesired, challenging behavior. What does that even mean? What is a problem behavior? Well, when there's a repeated issue, we've talked about that on the previous slide, but I talk a lot about undesired behavior and challenging behaviors. I like to avoid calling it problem behavior because that identifies the student as the problem when really the environment is the problem. But undesired or challenging behavior basically indicates behavior that we want to decrease or reduce. It indicates that these aren't good. I would like to reduce them for greater satisfaction of me and the student. So why does this matter? List examples. Well, what are examples of problematic behavior? Aggression, disruptive behavior like calling out repeatedly, bullying, social isolation, off task, right? Task refusals. You think of some, come up with some examples of problematic behaviors that you would encounter in a classroom. Why does it matter for you to be able to determine the undesired or challenging behaviors? Well, if you can't target, if you don't know what to target for change, how are you going to change it, right? So that's what this is. How about desired or pro-social behavior? These are behaviors that you want to increase and see more of. These are the good behaviors. These are the appropriate behaviors. These are behaviors that follow social norms in your classroom to allow learning to occur. These are behaviors you want to reinforce. Okay, so why does this matter? Well, what you focus on, you're going to get more of. So if you focus on the problems, you're going to get more problems. But if you focus on the good, you will in turn get more good because you're teaching that these behaviors are worthy of your attention and praise, and therefore students follow suit. So I need to know what to focus on, like paying attention, active engagement, answering questions, utilizing manners with peers, asking nicely, right? These are all things that would be considered desired and pro-social behavior in a classroom. So hit pause, come up with a list on your own. What are desired or pro-social behaviors that are worthy of you focusing on and attending in a classroom to increase? All right, what about preferred outcomes? We're going to talk about this a lot in this course. So this is a key term I need you to understand. What the heck does that mean if I'm talking about preferred outcomes? Well, it's an outcome that achieves the learner's motivation and often increases pro-social behavior. It's basically getting something good, right? Like I put on my winter coat for the first time this year and I find $20 in the pocket. That's a preferred outcome of putting on that coat, right? What's a preferred outcome of a student turning in an assignment on time, not losing any credit? That's a preferred outcome, getting a good grade. What's the preferred outcome of a student lining up for recess the first time you blow the whistle? Maybe they get praise, they get a high five from you, they get to do a get your wiggles out video right when they get into the classroom. That's a preferred outcome. Preferred outcomes is basically something good happening after pro-social or good behavior. All right, so what about reinforcement? We are going to talk about reinforcement a lot in this class. And most people have a very large misconception of what reinforcement is. So what is reinforcement? We all can identify that we understand that it's something good. We understand that reinforcement is a good thing. But what I need you to know is that it's an outcome that leads to pro-social behavior. It is anything that increases a behavior. So if you publicly praise a student for raising their hand without calling out, and they now no longer raise their hand and participate in your class because you embarrassed them by giving them public attention, you didn't reinforce that behavior. Praising them seems like it would be reinforcement, but it didn't increase the behavior. Reinforcement is anything that increases a behavior. So what types of things increase your behavior? Most of us respond to praise. Most of us respond to money, right? If we're going to go and get paid, I'm likely to show up, whether it's a job or some type of a bonus, right? Most of us respond to time away from work, right? A weekend, a paid day off, right? These are things most of us respond to. If you do problems 1 through 3, you don't have to do problems 4 and 5. Those are usually outcomes that increase behavior and are likely to be a reinforcer or reinforcement. Okay, so whereas a reward does not necessarily increase behavior. A reward is basically just something good that's considered to be enjoyable. So these would be things like a high five. Does a high five actually change your behavior? Usually not. It's usually considered good and it's usually considered enjoyable, but it doesn't usually change behavior. Sticker charts. Kids love stickers, but does it get rid of problem behaviors in the classroom? No. It's considered good and enjoyable. Kids love stickers, but they rarely are effective at increasing behavior. They're not a reinforcer. Rewards are a treasure chest. Treasure chests, kids love a treasure chest. Kids love surprises. These are great rewards, but they rarely actually change future behavior. They rarely actually increase behavior. So they would be more so considered rewards. All right, what's evidence-based? What does that mean? We're going to talk about evidence-based or data-driven a lot this semester. I'm not making this stuff up. The tools that I give to you this semester are proven by data to be effective. That means it's factual. I'm not making this stuff up. This isn't my opinions. This is proven by data. So evidence-based is the foundation for effective behavior strategies. It's factual data, proven by data. When you as a teacher make decisions based on data and facts and not based on your opinion or how you feel, you're going to be a much more effective educator. So examples would be collecting data to make decisions. Teachers are really great at collecting data on grades, in grading assignments, grading to ensure comprehension or competency. They write a paper and we determine if they understood it. They answer multiple choice questions, and if they get the right answers at 90% or above, we assume they've mastered the concepts. That's data related to academics. But how can we be evidence-based with making behavioral decisions? We're going to talk about that this semester for you as a teacher. We're going to talk a lot about the environment this semester, because it is not the student that we need to change. It's the environment that we need to change the student. So an environment is stimuli around you that affects behavior. Everything around us is stimuli. How bright the lights are, sounds that are going on in the back. My dog is barking in the backyard right now and it's distracting me. Music playing, peers talking to me, the pen, and the fact that the ink is almost running out. Everything in your classroom is stimuli in your learning environment. Any stimulus can be an environmental variable. The reason that we want to understand environments and everything that goes into it is because we have to change an environment to change behavior. We are a part of an environment also. The way that I talk, the way that I respond, how I give instructions, what I do when somebody misbehaves versus what I do when somebody behaves. That is a part of an environment when I am in it. An environmental contingency is a behavioral response to the environment. An environmental contingency is a response, right? So if you email me, my response would be an environmental contingency. If you text me, my response is the environmental contingency. If somebody raises their hand and asks a question, how I respond is the environmental contingency. If somebody says, F this, I'm not doing it, Miss Bailey, how I respond is the environmental contingency. Preferences. We're going to talk a lot about this semester. It's what we value. It's our high value choices. It's the choices that we make, and it's the choices that we make that we like, right? So it's your preference. Where do you prefer to go out to eat? Where do you prefer to stream your top favorite binge-worthy shows, right? Preferences. But preferences matter in a classroom to students when we're targeting their behavior for changing. Where do you prefer to sit? What do you prefer to write with? Who do you prefer to sit next to? When do you prefer to do your assignments? At home or at school, right? Preferences guide behavior. Instructional control. What the heck is this? I know I need to have instructional control of my students. That makes sense. But what exactly does that even mean? Well, it's a way of managing an environment to encourage desired behavior and learning. Who's in charge of managing an environment? Well, if you're in the environment, you're in charge of managing it as a teacher. And we know that an environment determines behavior. The student doesn't determine the environment. You are the environment. You change the environment to change student behavior. Utilizing environmental contingencies to promote pro-social behavior and learning. So essentially, instructional control is how do you respond to behavior to guide good behavior and decrease problematic behavior? That's really all instructional control is. I'm going to say it one more time. Really, instructional control is how do you guide good behavior and how do you decrease challenging behavior? That's your environmental responses to behavior to guide learning. When you've mastered that, you have classroom management, and that is instructional control. Other terms that we need to know or talk about this semester. Punishment. Punishment is not what you think. It's not timeout. It's not a spanking. It's not scolding somebody. That is not punishment. Punishment is decreasing behavior. Okay, hold up. Remember, reinforcement is increasing behavior, while punishment is decreasing behavior. So punishment isn't what the rest of the world thinks. In this class, I need you to know that punishment is purely decreasing behavior. Positive. Positive doesn't just mean good. in this class. Positive means adding something to the environment. I'm adding extra points. I'm adding candy to everybody that is sitting nicely. I'm adding praise to the environment for everybody that I see that has eyes on me, voice off, phones down, case side up, whatever it is, depending on what grade you teach, right? Positive is adding, whereas negative, that doesn't mean bad. Negative means taking away. And I love it when people take things away, right? I work a long day. I have 2 very young children at home. My plate is very full. I prefer negatives over positives, frankly. Negative is my spouse saying, don't worry about it, I'll do the laundry. Negative is, I'm going to take away your lowest score. Negative is, don't worry about coming in today, somebody else is going to take care of it. Negative, I'm taking away. Whereas, what is behavior? We're going to talk a lot about behavior. So what do we even mean when we refer to behavior? Behavior is anything that I can observe with my eyes and measure with data. If I can't observe it, I can't measure it. Therefore, it's not considered a behavior. Behavior is anything that I can observe and measure with data. Okay, these key terms we are going to reference a lot this semester. These key terms are going to show up on assignments. These key terms you're going to be required to utilize in answers to open-ended questions on the midterm. These terms are very, very important for you to understand. We're going to reference them multiple times throughout the semester, but I need you to know that these will show up again. It's important for you to understand the meaning of these key terms. All right, so here it is, week 1. We're at the end of the lecture. Read chapters 1 and 2 of Behavior Breakthrough. Note, your very first assignment due. And remember, PBIS is different than ABA. Okay, positive behavior interventions and supports provides us a framework for promoting desired behavior in schools. ABA, applied behavioral analysis, we're going to reference that this semester. That tells me why behavior is happening and what the heck do I do once behaviors have happened. All right, so double check your due date for our first assignment, which is the autobiography assignment. So if this date is no longer relevant to you for future sections, go to the announcement sections and check when is your first assignment due, which is the autobiography assignment in EDU360. Go check that due date and reach out to me if you guys need anything. I hope that we have a wonderful semester, and I hope more than anything that you gain necessary life realistic skills to be successful in the classroom.